Welcome to the Bucks on the Pond podcast. It is Monday night. It's 9 o'clock. Hope everybody had a great Easter weekend. Enjoyed some time with the family and all of that. I'm Stephen Igo, host of this podcast, joined as always by Jonathan Wagner, by Scott Lorbatcher. We'll explain his Mariners shirt here in a minute. Fellas, we got a lot to talk about. I wrote in I had an alternative headline for this podcast that I did not publish. We'll keep that that's an internal memo. But I did write mixed feelings, ECU ends 3-1 week with missed opportunities. So we got a lot to get to there. But first, let's just talk about non-ECU items. I do want to mention bot, AI, Elon Musk, Doge, and whatever other buzzwords we can throw out there.
Robo-umps, crypto.
That's it. Tesla. Blackouts, Tesla. I was blacked out like the Nats and Orioles as I was trying to start this podcast. I don't know what was going on. That's why we're starting a little late. But we're here now. Wags, you're wearing a Hurricanes shirt. Congrats on your 1-0 start to the series. Canes in 4? Question mark?
I'm gonna give a conservative Canes in 5. The Canes looked really good yesterday, but they just have been so inconsistent in the last month, and this team stinks on the road. So I think the Devils are good enough, and Markstrom is good enough if he's on to steal the game. But the Canes looked really good, and if they play like that, it's going to be a long series for the Devils by being a quick series. So Canes in 5, and I'm mostly saying that because I will be there for Game 5, so I would like to be there this round.
Wags, you also correctly predicted the Seattle Mariners would take 2 out of 3 from the Cincinnati Reds. Now, to be fair and accurately so, you had no faith in either team, as Scott and I had zero faith in our teams. And quite honestly, neither of them deserved to win the series. The Reds did score 24 runs yesterday, and today they have struck out how many times, Scott?
Well, when I stopped watching to start working on bedtime for the kids, it was Max Meyer's career high of 10. So I'm assuming it's more than that now.
14. But they have at least scored 3 runs.
Which is the most that they've scored after a game that they've scored 10 runs or more in like 10 games or something like that.
So how does it feel to lose the series to the one team that's never made a World Series?
Well, the first game we didn't deserve to win. Kind of came back and won. The second game I thought was probably the best game of the series. The Mariners won. And then we didn't really deserve to win the third game. But when you hit a grand slam in the bottom of the 8th to take the lead, and you're the last leg of my parlay, and then you lose, and not only lose, but somehow lose by, 4 runs? It's a pretty defeating feeling. So they did see a stat after that the Reds were 9-26 in rubber matches, dating back to their last 35, including last year. They're now 10-16 or 10-26 because they beat the Orioles. So, it's a tough loss, but early in the season, we got time to come back. I was trying to figure out when we play the Nationals, but it seems like it's far away.
I think it's actually early May. I want to say it's not too far away. Unless I was looking at the wrong year.
Oh, no. Okay. We are at home versus the Nationals in early May. And then we play at the Nationals in mid-July.
Yep.
So, Bucks on the Pond parlay, did it hit yesterday?
Mean, maybe. It's a asterisk because the Nationals went 1-1. But they didn't win the first game. So, I would say yes with an asterisk, which is like the second time this year that it's happened.
I do want to tie this into ECU baseball, as that's why people are watching this podcast. But let's be real. Like, we don't really have postseason scenarios to discuss. So we're going to be like killing some time with, baseball talk in general. Although it just so happened that a former Pirate, Zachary Agnos, made his debut against the Washington Nationals last night. First off, incredible moment. I think we all love the Agnos family, Zach Agnos, and it was really cool to see Jake there. It's just kind of crazy. We know Jake Agnos as the pitcher from his time at ECU, and Zach obviously makes it to the major leagues, and we're super happy for him with Jake having so many injuries. I'm sure he's thrilled, and knowing those brothers, man, that has to be such an experience. And obviously Nico, you know, watching from above. But man, what an awesome moment! Scoreless eighth inning gets the hold. Wags, we'll start with you because he did it against your Nats, and your boy was it Luis Garcia pimping a fly out in Coors Field.
Yeah, and I wish Carter Cunningham was here so we could ask him what he thought about that pimp job because he posted an Instagram story and it was pretty funny. But yeah, it was really cool. Zach Agnos is, I would say he's probably my favorite ECU baseball player, and partly because he was one of those guys that was there when I was there, and he was there when I was covering, and he was also there when I transitioned after graduation, stayed in Greenville. So that era of ECU baseball is very dear to my heart, and Zach Agnos is awesome. I mean, really good dude, does everything the right way, has obviously been through a lot to get where he is, but yeah, he was one of those guys that every time we talked to him as media, he was super nice, probably the easiest guy we've ever had to talk to. And, from the fan perspective, again, one of the nicest dudes. And something that stands out to me is I think it was that super regional against Texas. And it was late. It was one of those games that was super late night. And it's like 1, 2 o'clock in the morning. And I just remember I stayed until the very end for that game. And we were out in the parking lot, and that's just where it brought us on the way out when the players are coming out, talking to family, fans, all that stuff. And I just remember there was this one fan just kind of hounding Zach about, like, what are you going to do next year? Are you coming back? Do you want to be a two-way guy? And it pissed me off just standing there as an innocent bystander. But Zach, the way he handled it, it just goes to show what kind of guy he is. He had a smile on his face as nice as he could, and he answered every question. And he went through and talked to everybody. That's just the kind of guy he is. And it was cool that he got to do it against the Nats too, because I believe that was his childhood team. So, I was glad as a Zach Agnos fan to see him come in, have a success. I would have liked it if the Nats came in the ninth when he was out of the game and stole that win. But yeah, it was really awesome. And it's good for ECU baseball, seeing a guy that maybe that's not even the place that people thought he would make it as a big leaguer when he was at ECU. And seeing that he did it and he did it as quickly as he did, it's super impressive. It's great for the program, and it's great for Zach.
Scott, your emotions and thoughts, seeing Zach in the big leagues.
Yeah, I mean, I'm with Wags. He's definitely my favorite player that's been here during the Cliff Godwin era. I mean, I do think you're always going to be more partial to the guys that you were in school with. So Kyle Roller still holds the number one spot for me. But still mad that Cliff Godwin took Zach Agnos out of the game against Texas in that super regional, because I think we may have been to Omaha had he not done that. One thing that I would say was shocking was seeing the 97 98 number pop up on the screen as he was pitching. That's not something that he had while he was in school. I mean, you see it with Gavin Williams pumping 100 today, but he was close to that number when he was in college. But I don't remember Agnos being anywhere close to 97, 98. So that was pretty impressive. And, obviously they cut to his family and talked to Jake, who's another guy that I really like to watch play in school. And it's a cool moment for both of them to have together. Obviously, wish his dad could have been there, because I'm sure that would have been a big moment for their family. And just an awesome thing for ECU baseball. And I'm going to say I don't think he's the last ECU guy to make his MLB debut this season, because I think we got some other guys that are getting pretty close, especially a guy like Wisenhunt. I think you may see before the year's out. So awesome to have guys playing in the pros. The more guys that we can have that are not on the Cardinals, the better. So, as much as I love Alec Burleson, sucks watching him play sometimes. So, it's cool seeing him on the Rockies. And to make a debut in the the City Connects, which I saw did get some mixed reviews. Somebody said,
Not
one
a
of my
fan
listeners
here.
said that he had to make his MLB debut wearing a Cartoon Network jersey. So, was pretty cool to see, and really proud of Agnos.
And we're at the point, guys, as we mentioned Gavin Williams tonight. I think it was Chuck shouted out, yeah, Gavin Williams just beat the Yankees. Yeah, Gavin tonight, 8 Ks, pitched into the 7th inning, 2 runs allowed, 2 walks. I mean, on a night-to-night basis, like we're seeing ECU alums make an impact across Major League Baseball. And I mean, it's just, you just don't want to take it for granted. I mean, Connor Norby now back, Alec Burleson, Sean Armstrong, Jeff Hoffman closed out the Mariners on Friday. Like it's pretty surreal, guys. Like, I mean, and once Wisnhunt makes up, and I think a lot of these guys, they're not just flashing the pans either. Like I think Zach Agnos has a chance to be the Rockies closer. We'll see what Burleson's future holds with the Cardinals, but I think he's going to be the bigs a long time with his bat-to-ball skills. But it's pretty awesome to watch, Wags, just the presence right now across Major League Baseball. It's never been like this at one time.
Yeah, absolutely. And, that's not even to mention a guy like Trey Savage, who's a top 100 prospect. So he's a guy, too, that I expect to kind of move quickly through the minors. Maybe not this year, but I think next year is the year where if he keeps pitching like he has throughout his life, then he's going to be another guy that's going to be knocking on the door pretty soon. So, yeah, it's awesome to see. And it's such a big selling point just from a program perspective. Like, we're getting guys in the league, and we're getting guys in the league now, and we're not just getting, kind of scrubs here and there that somehow they made it to the league. We're getting guys that dominated at ECU. They did it the right way, and they moved up the minors and quickly again, and they're going up. And like you said, they're playing prominent roles too. Like Burleson, when he's on, he's a dude. Norby's a dude, obviously. And again, I think Agnos will be, by the end of time, a Rockies closer too. So, yeah, it's nice to see, and it's nice to see them doing it in pretty big-time roles. So hopefully it's not the last. I think we have some guys in the next couple of years that we'll get there too. But yeah, it's an exciting time for sure.
And not to forget, Scott, Clayton McCullough 1 out away from getting another win against your Reds.
Yep, down $10 on the Reds Marlins series here pretty quickly. I did win. I'm even because I also had not the Indians, the Guardians over the Yankees. So. Yeah, Clayton McCullough being a manager is really cool. And I think the Nats still have a guy that is an ECU guy that's like their pitching coordinator or something.
Sam Nairn.
Sam Nairn, that's right. He's Jerry Nairn's nephew, former Reds manager.
Speaking of betting, I took Nick Castellanos because the Pope died to hit a home run. He is 0 for 3 with 2 strikeouts. So hopefully that comes through.
I think I'm 0 for 15 on Alec Burleson home run props this year. If he could please hit a home run at some point this season, we would all be pretty grateful.
Yeah, I've taken that one, that free MLB no sweat bet quite a bit on DraftKings. Free plug for DraftKings. Hey, sponsor the show. Yes, we do this out of the kindness of our heart. Although I am trying to get YouTube monetization set up. I've been trying to do this for 2 years. I've sent in like every file and tax form possible, and they're still giving me error messages. It's such a pain in the ass. So screw you, Google. Screw you, YouTube. Get your crap together so I can pay these guys like 2 cents a week.
And we'll use it on Alec Burleson home run props.
Whatever it takes. All right. Let's talk about the 2025 Pirates. Got a lot of comments, specifically from JPN 1212. Yeah, I mean, just we'll get into the comments here in a minute, guys. But just kind of a mixed bag, really. It's you felt like you were on your way to a great week. I mean, Cliff Godwin said it best. It was a good week results-wise, but it was not a great week because they did not win the final game. He said that on the show today, and I just think you can't lose in that fashion and it not eat at you for a few days. 8-1 lead in the finale. You get outscored 15-1 to lose 16-9 to UAB in the finale. Again, you still go 3-1. Congrats, Scott, on your or actually Wags on
that
your
was me.
Correction. Yep. We had the F at 4-0 week that we were screwed out of. But yeah, overall thoughts on the week that was. We'll go around the horn here. We will start with Wags, since you got it right.
Yeah, I'm going to pat myself on the back. I mean, I correctly predicted the Reds-Mariners series. I correctly predicted ECU's week. So I'm kind of on a roll.
You just called the Grand Slam for the wrong team.
Yeah, I guess I did. That's unfortunate, though. But yeah, I mean, it's right now you can't afford good weeks. Every week has to be great. Every week has to be just about perfect. So that's where I come out. I come out feeling like we missed a big opportunity. And entering Sunday, we were 70 on the dot in RPI. And if you win that game and move up a couple more spots, then I still don't think you're in at-large consideration, but you're closer than you were last week. So for a team that everything has gone so wrong, and if you go 4-0 at this time of the year and you kind of pump the brakes on some of the concerns a little bit, and it feels like you're kind of right back there, and who knows what happens if you just keep stacking those 4-0 weeks. So that's what I come out of it feeling, just like we missed a big opportunity. Again, I don't think if you go 4-0, you're not on the bubble yet. You still have a lot of work to do, but I mean now it's just disappointing, and it sucks to be disappointed coming out of a 3-1 week where you clinched a series win over UAB, but you also clinched a series win over UNCW, which coming into the year felt like such a big deal. So it's just the same word. It's disappointing, missed opportunities, frustrating, and yeah, you can use the wind as an excuse all you want to, but both teams were hitting at it on Saturday. So I don't want to really hear that. And ECU, the bats just fell off a cliff, to be honest with you.
Pun intended.
Yeah, I noticed that too.
JPN, before we get to Scott, says the effect of Saturday where our RPI would have been around 65 with the win. Instead, we are still at 75. He mentions 94. So you are up 18 spots, I think it was, from last week, but still missed opportunity, Scott. And your thoughts on the week that was?
Yeah, I mean, it's not that you lost because, teams are going to lose, but to go up 8-1 and then to give up, 15 runs compared to your one, the second half of the game is pretty frustrating considering, you're looking at potentially run rolling UAB at one point after the third inning. That's what I was thinking. I was like, okay, maybe we get a run roll, get arms rested for Tuesday. And all of a sudden it flips. And now it's like, all right, we got to get back in this game. And then it just felt like we didn't show a lot of fight after we got down, which has kind of been the MO of this team a lot this year. When they get a lead and give it up, they kind of fold sometimes. And that's been pretty frustrating. And I think if this was a game that goes back and forth in late innings, even if we had a lead, it may not feel as frustrating as a loss as it does to be up 8-1 and then to lose by a ton. Like it's just losing that way is just not something we expect. And you had a chance to pick up a game on UTSA in the standings because I do think winning the conference is still a big deal for me. I don't think it will hold a ton of weight for at large this season. I think that we've kind of played ourselves out of that anyway. But I do still want to win the conference regular season because I think that does matter, and I think we've already established ourselves as the premier program in this league, and to win the league in a down year, even if it doesn't lead to an at-large bid, I think still kind of keeps us in that spot. But now we look beatable. So yeah, I mean, it's just a disappointing end to the week. I mean, the UNCW game feels like it was a year ago. That's kind of how that loss felt. So, and I feel like we've had a lot of those this year, and it's really starting to weigh on the enjoyment of winning those games like UNCW, right? Because that should have felt like a bigger win than it was, just because it was a rubber game in a series between two teams that are typically really good and are not this year.
We'll talk more about NC State later in the show, but if I had to predicted going into last week, I thought ECU was going to sweep UAB and lose to NC State. If they somehow win Tuesday, does that make up for it? I mean, from an RPI perspective, it'll probably be more points. Somebody was talking later. What will the RPI impact be? Like if you beat, I don't know what state is in the RPI. I haven't looked recently, but I would assume top 50 at least.
They're in the 30s.
Okay, so if you win that on the road, I mean, does that make up for Saturday's collapse in some ways?
Yes and no. Yes, because I mean, if you just look at the resume, and the resume is non-existent, your series wins right now are against RPI 131, 261, 199, 209, and 120. Your individual wins outside of that, you also have the Leclerc Classic, Indiana State 140, Virginia Tech 32. But outside of that, your other midweek wins, your only top, you have one win in a series lost to Coastal Carolina, who's 13. And then outside of that, it's UNCW. That's your best RPI win on the midweek, and it's 111. So, yeah, adding something else to the resume would be good because you're adding something to the resume. And you have to have something. And right now, ECU has nothing. So, splitting with NC State, it could matter. But, again, in the grand scheme of things, I think, like Scott said, right now what matters is winning the league because I don't think you can get back into at-large consideration with the resume right now. And it feels like to me, from that standpoint, then winning a game that you should have won on Saturday feels like it's more important.
JPN or Cameron says, JPN, I hate to break it to you, there's zero chance we get an at-large bid. Even if we went out, it would still be tough to get in with the lack of quality wins. So I don't know, Scott, are you based on that? And I agree. Look, I mean, it's going to be extremely difficult. Is it even worth? I guess it's a rivalry game, so you're trying to win it. But like, do you throwing all your arms? Like Ethan Young is going to be available tomorrow. You know, do you throw him? Do you throw whatever it takes, or do you still just try to win the conference at this point?
I mean, I'll be there, so I would hope that they still try to win the game. But
throw everybody.
Which that's another negative tally mark for us having a chance to win is I'll be there, and our record has not been great with me in attendance, especially on the road. But yeah, no, I mean, I think Cliff takes these ACC games pretty personal. I think that goes back to his days as a player. I think he's definitely going to try to win this game any way he can. And like we said, so if winning the conference and even winning out won't get you an at-large, then you got to have wins for the fan base, which means winning rivalry games, winning games at home. Yeah, that's a fair point, JP. But yeah, I mean, I think you do try to go out and win this game. I think it matters for recruiting. Not that we go straight up head-to-head against NC State a ton, but when you're looking at the teams that actually recruit the state of North Carolina, NC State and ECU are the top two. UNC kind of typically, when you go to their games, you hear a lot of New York, New Jersey, California. You hear much more North Carolina, Virginia at NC State and ECU, which I think is pretty cool. So hopefully we go out there and try to win. I do think if we were to win out with a 15-game win streak going into the conference tournament, I think we probably are back in at-large contention. I think that's a little bit hyperbolic to say that we wouldn't be. But, yeah, I think winning rivalry games and home games are probably the two most important things for this team right now because you want the fan base to stay engaged.
All right, what did we learn this past week, guys, if anything? Jonathan Wagner.
Yeah, surprise, I'm going to go positive. But I think we learned that Brad Pruitt is what we hoped he would be when we got him out of the portal. And, I think he had his best start of his ECU tenure this past weekend, and he looks like a potential Friday night type guy. And, we can get into this conversation later, but I will at least bring it up now. I think with how Pruitt's pitching and how Norby has been pitching, I think it at least warrants a conversation on, do you give Pruitt the opportunity to be your frontline starter. And when we got him out of the portal, I think I said it to you guys. I said I think he has that potential if it comes together to have that kind of leap into an ace. And it may have been on a podcast. I said he's not going to be Trey Savage, but you think of Trey Savage, his freshman year, he was used out of the bullpen and he kind of had mixed results. And then year two, he's one of the best pitchers in the country. And Brad Pruitt barely pitched last year at Oklahoma. This year, he's kind of blossoming into a starter, and not only a starter, but a starter at a time where ECU absolutely had to find another one. So it gives you flexibility. But Brad Pruitt right now is pitching, I think, as good as anybody else on the staff. And that gives me a lot of confidence moving forward. It gives the team a lot of flexibility as he figures stuff out. And he's got some good stuff. And who knows? He might be playing himself into getting drafted because I do believe he's eligible as well age-wise.
Scott Lorbatcher, what did you learn?
I don't know if it's that I learned it, but maybe it was reinforced. It's that somebody in this bullpen has to step up and eat innings on Sundays. We used 10 guys on Sunday, and I would describe one guy as effective out of the entire 10 guys that pitched, and that was Gabe Beschloss. And he has not been consistently effective this year, but he was on Sunday. And I thought maybe he should have gotten more opportunity in that game, especially knowing that you were kind of thin on arms going into it. If a guy goes out there and is effective, I would have liked to seen them just continue to go out there and pitch. But, whether it's Jaden Winter, Colby Wallace, Jackson DiLorenzo, Zayak, Ian White Jr., Lance Williams, one of those guys really needs to step in and step up and provide the 3-4 innings that we're going to need out of guys coming out of the bullpen on Sundays for the rest of the season. And if we don't find that, you're going to see a lot more of these ugly Sunday games the rest of the year. And I don't know who it's going to be, and it may not be any of them, but somebody's going to have to do it if this team wants to have any sort of success in the playoffs, in the conference championship season.
Yeah, mine was pitching as well, and I think I made this point a few weeks ago, but I'm going to reiterate it. We said for so long that if ECU cleaned up the free passes on the mound, they would be A-okay. And they kind of have, they walked 4 on Sunday, but, it was in March. They were walking, 7, 8, 9 guys in a lot of their losses. Well, now they're just getting hit. Part of that is the weather warming up. But to me, the arms just look tired. The pitches, we know with Norby, the pitches right now, he's so tired he lost the N on his name. It goes by Orby. But just the movement, the location, the guys, some of these young arms look worn down. And that's starting to be a concern for me as far as what I'm learning watching it. And, this is college baseball. There are teams, ECU, again, I want to reiterate this. There are a lot of teams in college baseball that cannot pitch and have no pitching depth. ECU, as bad as Saturday was, they still have the second best ERA in the conference. They still have the lowest batting average allowed in the conference. So, you just gave up. You just made the UAB Blazers look like Aaron Judge with torpedo bats up and down the lineup. So, yeah, it was a terrible game. I think ECU would be the first to admit that. But, I still think the pitching is decent, but at the same time, there is a little bit of a fall off here from a batting average, balls in play perspective. ECU starting to give up a lot of barrels. I don't know if they need to change their sequencing or if this is just something that is happening as the weather warms up and teams get better hitting. But that's the thing that concerns me is they're fixing the walks, and now they're giving up a lot of hard contact. So they got to be able to find that balance. Ethan Norby, guys, we talked about it, or Wags brought it up. I was asked this in the VIP chat today. What do you do with Norby? For me, obviously this is the most he's ever pitched. I just don't think you have another option right now. If you want to flip it to where Pruitt goes Friday, I wouldn't be against that. But almost think he just has to pitch through it unless he has soreness and you got to sit him down. But like, I just don't see very many other alternatives. Wags, your thoughts on this going forward with Norby?
Yeah, I think I texted you guys on either after Thursday or Friday's game, and I said, at what point do we consider moving Pruitt to Friday, Norby to the bullpen, more so just to give him a little bit of rest. And then again, with the state of the bullpen, would he really get rest? And so who knows? But yeah, the more I thought about it, that's kind of where I've settled is you need someone to start. And if you're willing to maybe trade Ethan Norby for Jake Hunter for a week or two, and maybe you go Pruitt on Friday, Jake Hunter on Saturday, and then Sunday you figure it out like you have been. Well, you didn't figure it out this past weekend, but you know what I mean. And maybe you have Norby come out of the bullpen one day on the weekend. Maybe it's his Sunday. Maybe he starts on Sunday and for a couple of weeks to say, all right, just go give me 3-4, a little less pressure, and just see if it helps. But that's the thing. He just does look tired, and I wish we were in a position to where we were comfortable with our at-large resume, where you could feel like you could give a guy a rest and say, you're not going to pitch this week, you're not going to pick up a ball this week, you're just going to watch, you're going to heal, you're going to recover. But we don't have the luxury to do that. So it's one of those things. I wouldn't be surprised if we flip it and we do see Pruitt starting on Fridays for this weekend at least, and maybe Norby goes Saturday. But yeah, it's just if you do take him out of the rotation, it's just to me it just creates a whole lot more uncertainty, and I'm not sure you can afford that right now because in an ideal world, you say, all right, let's just have our two best pitchers right now starting, Ethan Young and Brad Pruitt, but you definitely can't take Young out of the bullpen. So there's really no good solution. So I think the solution is probably to just stand pat and maybe flip it.
Scott, your thoughts, and a lot of this goes back to maybe other arms need to step up to even have a chance to do this.
Now, are we talking about Carlos Rodon combined with Randy Johnson, Ethan Norby?
Yeah, that guy was something else.
But no, I mean, I do agree.
Don't forget Mark Burley.
Did you guys know that Braden Burris was a walk-off?
Oh my God.
But I think as long as the conference championship is in play, then Ethan Norby needs to stay in the rotation. Now, if it becomes not in play, maybe that last weekend against USF, maybe skipping a start then would make a lot of sense. I do think this week would be the week to make the change as far as order of rotation. Pruitt pitched on Friday because of the Easter weekend shift. You could give Norby an extra day off because he pitched on Thursday. Would be getting an extra day this week, so could get an additional extra day to go on Saturday. So I do think that makes a lot of sense to do this week. He gets an extra 2 days to rest his arm. But yeah, I think you're just seeing a lot of tired arms because once again we're relying too heavily on the same arms to extend over and over again. And like I do think that baseball in itself has changed so much with the way guys throw, with spin rate and velocity, both trying to get those as high as possible, that it's more difficult on young arms than it is guys that have done it for years and years that you see at higher levels. So I do think that we are seeing some of that fatigue. We saw it with Savage. We saw it with Root. We've seen it with Shankman on guys that have been heavy use guys throughout the beginning of the year. And I think it goes back to recruiting the portal and filling those holes of getting more guys that can throw strikes at the back end of your bullpen and get outs. And right now, we have not done that successfully. I know Towers and Antolik were expected to be big parts of this rotation and this pitching staff, but we do have to be more prudent in who we're bringing in, that they can actually come in and be an effective member of our baseball team because they're not to get too deep into the weeds with the money and stuff, but you're paying for scholarships and tuition for guys that aren't contributing. And you do have guys like Braden Burris that you're going to probably want to get money to next year, right? So we're divvying up the smaller amount of money that we have as a non-power program for our baseball team. We got to make sure that we're using that money wisely and on guys that are really contributing and being major impacts and factors on our baseball team.
All right. Colin Murray says, how do we go about fixing the 8-9 hole? He says Alex Peltier hitting close to sub 200. Boucher has 52 Ks, which leads the American. I think it's honestly, for me, guys, and I'll let y'all weigh on this too, it's kind of a lot like the rotation. Like your options are limited right now. I mean, I don't really see a clear answer on the roster. You know, the one thing that we have kind of thrown out is I said I would like to see Braden Burris get a shot at shortstop, but like, who then are you going to put in that other outfield spot? You know, Drew Downs, I know he had an unfortunate incident over the weekend. It sounds like it won't be super serious. He did not lose a tooth, according to Cliff Godwin, although something apparently flew out of his mouth that has yet to be figured out what it was. But, yeah, with Riley Johnson out, and it sounds like he's getting close, that is, to me, your last chance. I don't know. Am I missing a candidate here? And then obviously Braxton Trammell. So kind of your answers are on the injured list right now, Wags.
Yeah, absolutely. I think if Trammell was still healthy and still playing probably playing left field, then you probably have Braden Burris in center and your lineup feels a lot deeper. But Trammell's out. I don't expect Trammell back for a while. So you kind of are what you are at this point. And Peltier, and I don't know what it is, but I feel like there's so much untapped potential with him. He's a good defender. I like his swing. At least I have at times. But for some, it just hasn't come together. And you can't have that, pretty much guaranteed strikeout. It feels like some of those guys have been at times at the bottom of the order and put up prolonged offense across a game. And, Saturday I said the bats fell off a cliff and they scored a lot early, but you had 2 base runners in the last 5 innings of the game. And a lot of that is because not only could the top of the lineup not get on, the middle couldn't get on, but the bottom couldn't do anything. So it is frustrating. But, yeah, I mean, right now it's just your only option pretty much is sliding Burris to center and trying a guy like Keenan Bowman and hope that he goes on one of those streaks that he's done a couple times this year where he can have a 4-hit game, but he's also just as capable of, putting up an 0 for 4. So it's kind of like pick your poison at this point, and you got to keep riding with the guys that you think give you the best chance. But to me, I think Peltier, it's just the defense in center field is more valuable in the eyes of the staff. And I agree, you do need that on a team that has struggled defensively. But, Boucher is Boucher. He's your shortstop at this point. Do I agree with it? No. But at the same time, it's just unless you're moving Burris up there, like you said, it's just I don't really see a whole lot of other alternatives, which is kind of where you're at. But sneak peek to my bold prediction, I think we'll see a familiar face make an appearance in center field this weekend.
Ooh. Trent Whitehead's coming back?
What's crazy is that's the name that popped into my head too. And I was about to say Trent Whitehead.
Trent Whitehead was an absolute dog.
Wasn't it Jeremy Whitehead?
That was the guy before. That was the second Whitehead. Trent Whitehead was before your time. The good
Whitehead.
Whitehead.
Home run off of Andrew Brackman that went off the scoreboard to start NC State ECU game. That was absolutely rocketed.
I love that Wax thought about Jeremy Whitehead.
Is it bad that
It shows you how deep your ECU knowledge is from your era, but prior to different times. All right, Scott. 8-9 hole. Do you have any solutions other than Trent Whitehead?
Get Riley Johnson healthy, and then I don't think you see either of those guys in the lineup really, because I think Burris would maybe move up to shortstop. what is frustrating to me about Boucher is we have seen the accountability standard for certain guys in this program over the last few years. Guys like JJC, guys like Bristol Carter, where they play the first 4 innings of a game and they get taken out for whatever reason. For defense is what it was always kind of portrayed as the time. And then you have a guy who is not hitting and is making a ton of errors in the field and seemingly continues to get every single shot at shortstop. And I just don't really understand why that is. And it is pretty frustrating.
You all right, man? Is God striking you down for criticizing the Pirates?
I'm sorry, Boucher. Leave me alone.
Alex Boucher getting Scott choked up.
Boucher somewhere with his like doll. What's it called? The voodoo doll or whatever? Just like stabbing Scott in the throat.
The pollen is killing me. We need some rain.
Send us some rain and some pitching. All right. Speaking of rain, NC State, Colin Murray says thoughts of NC State trying to push our game due to, quote, rain, as they just broke top 25 and they have number 2 Clemson at home. Potential for us to hurt them more than help them. I mean, A-Vent has already done this once. Why not again? Right, Scott? Can you talk?
Yeah, I mean, I do agree. They're also coming back from like a long road trip to Cal, so it wouldn't shock me if they didn't want to play this game against a team that is more talented than their record is. So I don't think the rain is supposed to be too bad tomorrow, though. But hopefully we'll play. We'll see, I guess.
All right, some other thoughts and comments here. Cameron says Scott's still dying. He's going to get some water. He may or may not be back. Cameron says, never thought I would hear Cliff blame the win. Just shows you where we are right now as a team this year. And I don't think he was blaming the win necessarily. I think he was just pointing out the fact that it was a factor, and UAB did a much better job taking advantage of it than East Carolina. Cameron says, have y'all seen where certain Power 5 programs are pushing to have TV ratings included in the playoff selection? I assume this is for college football. I have not seen this. Have you guys seen this? Wags, you're Mr. On 3. Have you been following this?
That is the first I've seen it. And
it seems like you guys type of story. Y'all probably spinning this.
That is the first I've seen it. So unless I've just been sleeping on my off days, and I've seen nothing about that.
I'm just pulling up On 3 Sports Twitter, and the first thing I see is the Joey Aguilar trade has been completed as he's gone from UCLA to Tennessee. How funny is that, man? College sports is so stupid. Here we are. All right.
It'd be even funnier. Arkansas just had Madden Iamaleava, Nico's younger brother, enter the portal as an early enrollee and commit to UCLA. UCLA had a freshman that's coming in. He decommitted. It'd be funny if he goes to Arkansas. You complete like a 3-way trade here. It's so stupid.
Very, very dumb. All right.
Jake Garcia is available.
He is. Jake Garcia available. Eric Fletcher, ECU cornerback, random note, entered the portal today, bit of a surprise there. Also, the Pirate basketball team has a commitment, gentlemen, from a junior college point guard. So that was another reason why we were a little late tonight. You can check out hoistthecolors.net for more. Speaking of that, all right, I just saw a comment that made me laugh. Brandon Carr, speaking of Hoist the Colors, this did not make me laugh, but this is a genuine comment. As I wrote about his son Preston today, ECU D-lineman, he says, thanks for the D-line article today. It was great. So you can check that out, Hoist the Colors. He says, Scott, why in the world are you wearing a Mariner shirt? Need a Cup shirt. So we'll let you address that first, Scott.
First off, I do have a Cub shirt. It's like a 1912 throwback. But my Reds, man, I'm done. My Reds lost to Igos Mariners, and this was our bet. So I can get out right now.
Wags, I trust me, I've been there, man. There was a time 94.3 I was on the show where I couldn't talk for like a week straight and still somehow powered through and did a show. Wags, will our Tar Heels win it all this year? That is the quote from Brandon Carr. That is not me saying that. That is Brandon Carr's quote. Will our Tar Heels win it all? What is your response?
Well, Brandon, your Tar Heels, they're looking good right now. I think they're back in the top 8 mix. They came in at number 9 overall seed in my field of 64 this morning, but they're looking really good. They've kind of eased all those concerns that I think a lot of people had, but that's as much as I'm willing to talk about UNC baseball on this podcast.
All right, this is as far as he's willing to go. Bruce Willis says Rogera seems like he could help. So his name is Roger Vergara. This is the comment that made me laugh.
I think it's Rogara.
Rogara.
Is how it's pronounced.
So what is Rogers or Vergara? What is his status? He's at least hit some, but he's still dealing with the hamstring, I think.
Yeah, it doesn't seem like he's fully healthy, I guess.
Yeah.
He hasn't wowed me when he's been on the field anyways, so personally, I pass.
Yeah. It's just it's tough to tell. He hasn't gotten a consistent look because of the injury, I think. And, yeah, again, we'll have more conversations about the roster in the offseason, but I think there was some depth that needs to be added in terms of talent. I mean, that's the other thing that stands out to me, guys, not to keep dwelling on it, but like in the past, I feel like ECU has been the clear-cut, more talented team top to bottom watching these American Athletic Conference series. And this year, I just don't think that's the case. And some of that is youth. ECU will improve if guys stay in the program, but like I do feel like the recruiting needs to take a step up. And maybe this is more of a big picture offseason question, but I do think ECU right now, from a talent standpoint, is not where they usually are. Would you guys agree with that?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, in previous years when we all know that Cliff Godwin likes to unload the bench pretty much every game, and you're going to have your 9 starters, but you're going to see 12, 13, 14, 15 position players get into a game. And in previous years, it feels like you will at least have another group of 4 or 5 players on the bench that you feel pretty good about and that could probably start on a lot of teams elsewhere. And you don't have that. And the disappointing part of that to me this year is that coming in, I think we all felt like you had the potential to have that. And we obviously had a lot of questions coming in with so many new faces, but nobody expected, I think, this level. I think your guys, and not to single these guys out, but your guys like Davin Whitakers, your guys like Michael Kalinich, your guys like even a John Collins, those kind of guys. And you kind of felt like you'd get a little more consistency out of those guys, and you haven't. So it's disappointing. Injuries definitely, again, have played a role in that. And if you have a healthy Riley Johnson, currently a healthy Braxton Trammell, that definitely changes the picture. But yeah, it's just, to me, one of my rants early this year was I think we overmanage a little bit with taking guys out of the game too early and getting defensive replacements in there. And in previous years, you could get away with that because you had more talent on the bench. And now I don't think you have the pieces on the bench that can win you baseball games late in the game. So it's showing up more, and that's just where it is. And yeah, you definitely have to address it this offseason. You have to be a little more aggressive, I think, with the bats. You added a lot of pitchers this year, but to me, I think this offseason needs to be the offseason where you go get some impact guys in the bat for your lineup, and you get some guys that maybe have done it elsewhere and are transferring down, and you get them to come play a role. And, that's a conversation for later, but I do think it's a big impact on where this team is today.
All right. Scott, are you sure you didn't get bit by that black widow earlier? Maybe that's why you're done.
Maybe it got me. That's the second one that I found in my yard last week. So I got to be careful out there. Everybody stay safe from the Black Widow pandemic of 2025. But no, I agree with Wags. I do think that in the past we've kind of used the portal, even going back beyond the portal days to a guy like Connor Litton, just to fill roles and role players. But this year we needed to fill stars and middle of the order lineup guys. I'm dying here. And I think missing on a guy like Boucher that maybe we thought was going to be our power in the lineup, and to a smaller degree, Collins has really hurt this team's ability to have a ton of success.
All right, we were gonna have a debate about who's having a better freshman year, Braden Burris or Jacob Jenkins Howard. But we're low on time, and Scott is he seriously might be dead. So
low on breath.
low on breath. So we'll table it until next week. We go with that?
I appreciate that.
Yeah. and I tell you what, as listeners, if you're listening to this, very interesting. Just to kind of preface it a little bit, one of us prompted this question and said that he thought it was an easy answer, and it's honestly Wags wears his hand. It's a very fascinating debate because you can take it several ways. So I'm looking forward to that, and I also think we need to continue to get as much of a sample size with Braden Burris as possible. So we'll give it another week, and I think it'll be a good argument both ways because both players are having outstanding freshman years for sure. All right. Let's do – none of our bowl predictions hit. I had – all right, Wags had Grand Slam. I had Walker Barron Grand Slam. We did have multiple opportunities for this to happen, Wags, but it unfortunately didn't come through. He did get a 3-run double.
Yeah, we had a lot of chances, actually. We had 11 at-bats this weekend, if my math is correct, with the bases loaded. And we had 4 hits. They were just 3 singles, the 1 double, 1 hit by pitch, 4 strikeouts, and a few groundouts. So I was in contention from start to finish, and I felt pretty good in that first game, but they just couldn't get it done for me. I think they listened to the pod, they knew, and they got up to the plate, and the pressure got to them.
Scott, what was yours?
No errors. We made one in the first game, so good job.
I think they only made – let's see if I –
whole week.
Yeah. They only made a couple through the whole week. So, like, you weren't that far off. We were all kind of close in a way, but incorrect. Wags did get 3-1. We had Screw It 4-0, and we just missed on that. Scott and I did. So the week ahead, ECU at NC State, and then Tulane, the Green Wave, come to town. The Green Wave kind of had a up and down year. Their RPI is not impressive, mainly due to a bad non-conference schedule, but they are 24-17 overall, 8-7 in conference play, and they typically play better towards the end of the year. So solid team. Them and ECU probably kind of about even. JPN says who starts Tuesday. Lorenzo will start. It'll be a bullpen day. And then the lefty Consiglio starting for State, I believe. So I expect a bullpen day on both sides. All right, so week ahead predictions. We'll start there with Wags. What you got?
Yeah, it's one of those weeks where I come in and I really honestly have no idea, and more so for the weekend. And State, I don't feel good about State, and maybe it's just the end of the weekend looming large, but I think you're going to be outmatched against State. I don't have a good feeling. I think State wins that one, but it's one of those games I do think is going to be another good game. I just don't trust ECU's pitching or bats right now to do what they need to do to come out on top. So that sends you 0-1 going into the weekend. Tulane's Tulane, and Tulane, it feels like it's always a fun series no matter what. And I'm going to say 2-1 on the weekend. You win the series. I don't know which 2 games you win. I think you win the Brad Pruitt start, whichever day that falls on, and you find a way to win one of the other 2. So, yeah, I'm going to go 2-1 on the weekend, 2-2 on the week, and I don't feel good about it at all.
Scott?
I'm going to go 2-1 on the week because one of these games won't get played. It always rains when we play Tulane. I think we respond. We win at State tomorrow, I believe, and then 1-1 split with Tulane.
Yeah, I'm looking at the forecast. It's supposed to rain like every day, 50% chance, pretty much every day after Friday. So that would be interesting if they canceled a game. Decent call there. I like that. I'm going to go 2-2 as well. I just think the pitching issues. I will say Tulane gave up 25 runs in their finale against UTSA. So the series finale of this game, if it gets played, could be 30-28. So keep an eye on that. But yeah, I am going to go with 2-2. I think ECU loses the state and then wins 2 out of 3 against Tulane. I think these two teams are pretty even, and I'll take the Pirates at home. 3-1 will be a good week. It's just, yeah, I mean, you're just, as we've talked about, kind of running out of time for good weeks, which is a shame, but that's the situation ECU has put itself in. Bold predictions for the week ahead. Wags, you kind of hinted at yours earlier surrounding most likely a Riley Johnson return, it appears.
Yeah, I was between a couple. I almost went with a Gabe Beschloss related, but that bit me before this year. So I don't think you're going to see Riley Johnson tomorrow on Tuesday against State, but I do think Riley Johnson will start at least one game this weekend, and that's just me based on what Cliff said this morning. That I just got the vibe that he's close and we're going to see him. So I'm going to go. And this is bold, considering he's coming off a hamstring injury. But Riley Johnson will have a stolen base this week.
I like it. I like it because definitely with his injury problems this year, it is bold because, I'd almost want to just have him not run anywhere.
And I don't believe he had a hit in his brief stretch where he was on the field.
Correct.
So,
Scott, will your voice return long enough to make a bold prediction?
Debatable. Riley Johnson will have a sacrifice bunt. No, I'm just kidding. I'll go Dixon Williams 2-home run week.
I like that. Dixon did seem to be swinging the bat better, and he seems to be a streaky hitter. I like that pick. And as we sit here, I have no idea what I'm going to go with. I am going to go with Jack Herring. Will hit a home run this week. He's got 1 home run of the season. I think number 2 happens this week.
Tomorrow night.
Yeah, I think I was going to say that too. He feels like a homer against State.
Jack Herring will hit a yak and talk shit as he rounds the bases. This team needs some asshole in it. I'm just going to say, we need some assholes to step up on this team. This team needs some attitude. Am I wrong, guys?
You're correct. He will fight Alec Makarevich from the stands at midfield during the 7th inning stretch.
Let's do it. Whatever it takes, man. I just want to see the Pirates play with some passion. Cliff made a statement after the last NC State game. Play for the pride on your jersey, for the name. I just hope we see that tomorrow, win or lose. I want to see some passion tomorrow. Obviously, nobody throw punches or get ejected, but just come on. Let's see some flair out there. All right, we are out of time. Scott's ready to fight somebody. We know one thing. He won't be yelling tomorrow because he doesn't have a voice.
I can get it up there.
You're going to be the world's loudest clapper.
I'm pretty good at clapping. I will say that. I don't brag about myself a lot. I'm good at clapping.
Grade A clapper, Scott Lowerbatcher. Have your ears ready for that if you're sitting near him. In Doak. That's what it's called, right? I haven't been in the State's baseball stadium so long.
It's the Doak.
We'll have Brady Thomas and James Giglio there, son of Joe Giglio. And Hoisting Colors intern. All right, fellas. Any closing thoughts?
I may or may not be there on Friday, weather depending. So just keep that in mind. Probably not going to go well.
2-2, not looking good for any.
Now that I think about that, I'm feeling less confident about my prediction.
We'll see how it goes. Scott, any final words?
Shout out Ricola. I'm coming for you.
All right, fellas, we are out of time, and appreciate everybody tuning in. Good show. I mean, look, it's been a different year for us. Pirates right now not really in postseason contention, so we're still having a lot of fun though. As long as you guys can't see our off-air conversations as much as possible as our show prep, but look, we still love baseball, love covering the Pirates, so always fun to talk ECU baseball. We'll see you next Monday, 9:00. Although Scott Lorbatcher will be virtual. Although I guess he's always virtual, but
We're all virtual.
We're all virtual. He'll be extra virtual next weekend in Vegas. So he will join us, and he definitely won't have a voice then, but whatever. All right. It's been fun. We'll see you guys next Monday, 9:00. Peace out.